afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission, Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Feck,
Present.
Vice Chair McGill,
Here?
Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Chang,
Present.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Lesnar Buxton,
You.
Commissioner Ulander LaBerge.
Here.
All right, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay. And then any written public comment? I didn't see any, but didn't know if there was any last-minute submissions. Okay, and then we'll go on to public comment. So any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. I don't have any speaker slips, but is there anybody online?
There is no one online.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we will move on to our youth council report. If you want to come forward, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Parks and Recreation Commission. My name is Jeremy Solano Beltran, Treasurer for Youth Council. I would like to provide a brief update on past and current Youth Council events since March. On Saturday, April 13, we held the 2024 Youth Speak Out Teens for Tomorrow at the Palm Park Beach House. Using funding received from the Youth Making Change grant, we were able to host a powerful discussion for roughly 40 teens, with lunch provided by South Coast Deli. Despite the rain, we welcomed several teams across Santa Barbara who were ready to discuss important topics such as environmental sustainability, mental health, inclusivity, public safety, and more. We want to thank our adult allies and guest speakers for continuing to put the youth's voice forward. Now that our event has concluded, we will be working to take the discussion from our event and factor it into our initiatives for next year.
Good afternoon. I'm Kavya Suresh. I'm also a member of Youth Council, and I have some other updates. So the Youth Council recently closed its recruitment cycle for the spring of 2024, and we conducted interviews over the course of 4 meetings, so approximately 2 months, and we'll be welcoming new members into vacant positions very soon, so we're super excited for that. And despite our hard work in reaching out to alternative and continuation high schools in the area, we did not receive any applications from them, and we're hopeful that we will see some applications during the next recruitment cycle. And we will continue to discuss ways in which we can improve our outreach and intentionally recruit members from those schools. However, our outreach to junior highs was very successful, and it is so important to include youth voices that represent our Santa Barbara community, especially the younger members, and we are super happy to offer non-voting member spots for younger teens looking to take action in the community at the junior high level. And lastly, we are continuing our work on raising awareness of the Safe Firearm Storage Ordinance. Now that it has passed and gone into effect, we are teaming up with the Police Department and Moms Demand Action to host a free gun lock giveaway. So we welcome you to join us on Saturday, June 1st from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Franklin Neighborhood Center to learn more about firearm safety. And Moms Demand Action will be providing a Be Smart presentation in both English and Spanish, and we as Youth Council will be assisting the police department with giving away gun locks. So Parks and Recreation Commission, we thank you for your time, and can we answer any questions from any of you?
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions from the commission? Vice Chair McGill.
I just want to say, of course, thank you and congratulations on the successful speak out and recruitment. Just one quick question overall. How did the recruitment go in terms of, were there more people applying this year than there has been in the past? Because I know that's one of the things we'd spoken about in a previous meeting.
Yeah, so we definitely seen more teens asking about our recruitment cycle overall, and I think it has been a success comparing to past years. Yeah.
Okay, that was all the questions. Oh, one more. Commissioner Aldana.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for your continued good work. very nice.
All right, thank you. And one question, can you repeat when the gun lock thing at Franklin Center, the time, June 1st? And
Yes, June 1st from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Franklin Neighborhood Center.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Okay, we'll move on to our Commissioner Committee assignments reports. I'll start from my left. Commissioner Aldana.
None this week. I mean, this month.
Commissioner Chang.
Nothing to report.
Vice Chair McGill.
Park Foundation meeting was canceled this past month.
Okay, Commissioner Unander-Leberge.
No update to report.
Okay, and Commissioner Lesner-Buxton.
No update to report.
Okay, and I also don't have an update, so it's a quiet month. All right, Commission and staff communications.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, I sent an email out to the Commission as well as Mayor and Council and the Historic Landmarks Commission regarding the condition of the Italian stone pine, so I want to recognize that as part of your meeting. We will be back before the Commission at some time in the future to talk about next steps to engage you as well as the Street Tree Advisory Committee, Historic Landmarks Commission as to planning a vibrant future for the canopy along Anapamoo Street.
Okay, yes, I saw that, thank you. And then any ceremonial items this month?
We do not have any this month, Chair Feck.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a few consent items. We did get a summary of council actions. That's for information. And then we do have a recommendation that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 24th, 2024. Just need a motion and a second.
I'll move.
Vice Chair McGill.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. May I have a vote? All right, awesome. Now we can go to our street trees. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Feck and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove a Tasmanian blue gum located within the front setback of the property at 240 Alameda Padre Serra. The applicant is requesting the removal of the tree primarily due to safety concerns. They stated that there's a sloped property. There's a slope towards the tree, so there's heavy saturation, concerns with tree failure impacting the power lines that surround the tree, impacting APS. You may recall a very similar application to the property just to the uphill side on Alameda Padre Serra last month. We originally were expecting to receive both applications together. The applicant for 240 was the renter or relative of the actual property owner, and we are unable to consider an application complete unless we have support for the removal from the actual property owner. So it was delayed a month. The committee reviewed the tree, noted it was in a very similar state and condition to the tree that was previously removed last month, or reviewed last month, I'm sorry. In fair shape overall, lack of maintenance, was leaning, does exist in an area that is prone to saturation. There was discussion about the merits of the tree retention versus the potential risk of failure and the impact to the neighborhood. There was general consensus with the committee members, similar to last month, that removal was practical and that it wouldn't cause a huge impact to the neighborhood as a whole. After review, made a recommendation to approve the removal, did condition a replacement tree to be planted within the setback of the property that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity, and as part of the recommendation, noted the commission could use the finding that the character of the immediate neighborhood with the respective forestation wouldn't be materially impacted.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Vice Chair McGill.
So, I mean, I'm assuming that there's basically no fundamental difference between this application and the one we looked at last month, I mean. The condition, the tree condition, tree planting condition for 240, as I recall, we also put the same condition on 230 Alameda Padre Serra. So is this a removal conditional on 2 trees overall between the 2 applications? I just want to clarify that.
Chair Feck, Vice Chair McGill, essentially that's correct. The property at 230 Alameda Padre Serra goes up the driveway, and then the property kind of actually sits behind this one. So that entire sloped area that, I think it was ice plant or whatever the ground cover is actually the property for 240.
Right.
So the expectation for the property at 230 was they would replace a tree on their property, whether in that narrow band on the uphill side of the driveway or somewhere up, within their actual property footprint. And I think the expectation here is that you would see a replacement tree somewhere in the same vicinity of the existing blue gum.
And it doesn't need to be the equivalent of a setback tree? It just needs to be on the property, is that correct?
In both cases, I think they didn't specify that
Okay.
it was within the setback. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Aldana?
As far as the specific tree, there's no specific tree, just so it doesn't go over 30 feet, is that correct?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Aldana, that's correct. Historically, the recommendations from the committee has always been tied to like a targeted height at maturity. That gives a lot of decision-making latitude to the property owner rather than saying it has to be an A or a B or a C type, tree.
Okay, is there anybody online that wants to speak for this tree? I don't have any speaker slips.
There's no one online.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we're good to, if someone wants to make a motion. Or I can make a motion. I make a motion that we agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee and approve the removal on the condition that the applicant replace with another tree on the property that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity at 240 Alameda Padre Serra.
I'll second that.
Oh. Okay, with respect to the forestation will not materially affect by the proposed removal. That's the finding.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, may we have a vote, please? That one's approved. Thank you.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove a tipu tree. This is located within the front setback of the property at 902 North Noble Street. The applicant is requesting removal for a couple different reasons. One had to do with just roots. The tipu tree does have a pretty aggressive root system, but most of the driving rationale was just the tree is too large for the space that it was planted in. Extensive maintenance concerns. We've interacted with the applicant before about the level of pruning that you can do to a tree too, and that becomes very problematic with a tree of this nature that can grow, several feet a year. So they've had to scale back the pruning that they do, and then it's still very costly and very maintenance intensive. The committee looked at the tree. It is in good health. It's hard to find a tipu that's in poor health. There was general consensus that it is just simply too large of a species to be functional in this space. If you look up most information for the tipu tree, it's on average, it's 25 to 50 feet in height at maturity and a 50-foot spread. I made a note for a factoid. The largest known tipu is in Goleta. It's not visible because it's on like a ranch property, but it's 55 feet tall and 133 feet wide, which is pretty spectacular. You can find it on the California Big Tree Registry. So getting back to this tree, there was consensus that it just doesn't make practical sense in this space. The committee, while on site, discussed replacement trees and did note that it warranted some form of replacement. The condition that the committee decided on was a replacement tree that could get to 20 feet at maturity. So the recommendation before you from the Street Tree Advisory Committee is to approve the removal on the condition that a replacement tree be provided that can reach 20 feet at maturity under the principles of good forest management. I did want to mention, and I don't know if we received the speaker slip, but the applicant's present today. We had an in-person meeting after the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting and discussed the condition and also the recommendation of the Street Tree Advisory Committee. They were opposed to planting a tree in that small little front yard space and actually proposed if it would be feasible to plant a street tree in the parkway adjacent to the property on the Noble side. So they've submitted a speaker slip and would like to speak. I wanted to make mention of that. I didn't know they were going to be present here today, but they would like to plant a street tree. The designated street tree is a pepper tree. People call them California pepper trees as well. So it's very functional for that space. And I think that had the committee discussed that, would have seen that as a feasible option in terms of mitigation for the loss of the existing tree. So again, the Street Tree Advisory Committee as presented is to approve the removal of the tree in a setback with a condition to plant a new tree within the front setback that can achieve 20 feet at maturity with the findings of good principles of good forest management. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair McGill.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that. Of course, the big difference between a street tree and a setback tree is who's responsible. And the street tree puts a burden on the city that the city will not have with a setback tree. Would you care to comment on that?
Chair Feck, Vice Chair McGill, I would. That was part of our discussion. The applicant said that they would take all responsibility for establishment, which is watering. The long-term care, it just gets folded into the program and isn't really a huge lift for us. So the establishment, the watering, which is really kind of the crux for us in terms of new trees, they said that they would absorb that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Your mic's off. Oh, sorry.
Just to follow up then, if we were to approve that, say, make it a choice of setback or street, we would need to condition in the motion that the applicant bears all responsibility for the establishment of the tree. Or that would be appropriate, I would guess.
Chair Feck, Vice Chair McGill, I think that would be more than appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Aldana.
Yeah, how high does the pepper tree grow on average?
Chair Feck, Commissioner Aldana, it's a good question. Out front of City Hall, we have the historic pepper tree that's, probably 55 feet tall or so. I think most of the ones we see in town, probably around 20, 25 feet, maybe. Some a little larger, some a little smaller. They tend to be pretty highly variable, I think, in terms of just their overall size.
And the reason I ask is because you have the power lines, and would it be under the power lines?
Chair Feck, Commissioner Aldana, I think the power lines are on the opposite side of the street. I'm not 100% certain. It's generally a fairly utility-friendly tree anyway. It's not something that gets tall to the point where we for sure would guarantee that it would get, heavily utility pruned.
Commissioner Chang.
Sorry, so I just want to clarify, there are two proposals on the table. The first is to replace the tree with one in a similar space, and the second is to replace it with one that the city is responsible for. And in the second case, the owner is responsible for establishment. Was that the condition? Or just the first one?
Chair Fett, Commissioner Chang. So during the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, the applicant wasn't present. The recommendation from the committee was to approve the removal and condition a new tree to be planted back within the setback. The applicant has a desire to, rather than plant a tree within the property, to plant a street tree, which they would be responsible for the cost of installing the street tree and providing water to establish the street tree. Long-term, in terms of developmental pruning and just maintenance pruning, that just becomes a part of the urban forestry program.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so we've gone through the commission's questions, and I do have a speaker slip, so Victor Beltran, if you want to come forward. You will have 2 minutes to speak. There'll be a timer on that screen in front of you, and then she'll start it when you're ready, okay?
Thank you. How's everybody doing? I think Mr. Slack here covered pretty much everything. We wanted all the concerns and everything, but a big part of it was, also the power lines, the cables, the fact that the tree is so close to the lines. Whenever we get tree service done, they charge us extra because they're close to the lines. And they've been there for about 16 years. So it's like $1,000 every year for the maintenance on that tree, and the roots are getting close to the foundation, and we don't want it to damage any of that. So we're open to the idea of taking care of the new tree that would be planted on the street side, which before there was a little pepper tree. It wasn't little, it was pretty big, but it didn't get up to the power lines. But it dried out and they cut it out and it's not there anymore. So if we were to put one exactly where the old one was, I think that would be a good idea, and we'd be responsible for watering it and putting it in, if that's okay with all of you. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got few questions.
And also wanted to mention there's no cables on the other side of the post, so that would be another good reason to put the tree on the street side. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you so much. Vice Chair McGill.
Just to kind of loop back to the question about watering and any motion, how long do you think it would take to establish the tree? And again, I'm going to the appropriateness of having a motion sort of time-bound, for X years minimum.
Chair Fett, Commissioner McGill. Typically minimum, I think when we ask for establishment, like say for a contract or something like that, minimum would be like 18 months to 2 years. A lot of it's variable. If you get winters like we get, that could expedite establishment, but I'd say on average 18 months is about as short of a period as you would want to consider for establishment.
Commissioner Aldana.
Yes, on the presentation, you mentioned that the power lines were on the other side, but yet the applicant says that you have some type of lines on your side. What specific lines do you have on your side?
I don't know if I can point, but the picture right there, there's lines like right on the...
Yeah. So is it power or cable,
Chair-
internet?
Chair Fett, Commissioner Aldana, it's the house supply. It's like there's a cable and what we would call house supply, which is like 220 volt that goes to the property.
Got it.
So it's coming across the street from the actual high voltage lines to the property.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chang.
There's mention of a street pepper tree that was cut down. Do we know why it was cut down? I mean, just to make sure there aren't any structural constraints with replanting a tree there.
Chair Fett, Commissioner Chang, I've been on site since the discussion, and it's a viable parkway for replanting. I don't have the history of the tree removal. More than likely, it probably just died for whatever reason and was removed. That's typically the only time that we take action on a street tree.
Got it, thanks.
All right, Vice Chair McGill.
I'm ready to make a motion if
Okay.
we're...
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know about that. I am prepared to make a motion that we approve the tree removal request at 902 Nopal Street on the condition that the applicant replace the tree with a tree capable of achieving 25 feet, is that what? 20 feet, either in the setback or as a street tree, and if it's a street tree, that it is further conditioned that the applicant plant the tree and maintain it through establishment for a period of 2 years.
I will second that. Any discussion? All right, may we have a vote, please? Okay, so it is approved, and Mr. Slack will help you with the next steps, okay? Thank you.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee for review is a street tree designation change. This is for the 500 to 700 blocks of North Salsa Puedes. The initial request came from a landscape architect who has a project within the 700 block of North Salsa Puedes. And as part of that project, they're planning on planting new street trees. The city has a plan check process and a commitment to just essentially water-wise practices where new plants and trees need to be classified as low water use. The ranking system that's used is, we refer to it as wool calls. It's the water use classification of landscape plants, essentially. It's been in existence for many years. It's split up into regions. So like as you move south, the regions change, and the water use requirements of various trees and plants will typically increase because you're dealing with hotter and hotter temperatures. As if you move up north, say a medium water use tree here could potentially be low water use in the Bay Area or something where you see a little bit more rainfall. So the current designated street tree species for the 700 block is a purple leaf plum, which is technically classified as medium, which doesn't make it through the plan check process because it's not a low water use tree. It's really not a great street tree either, but more importantly, it's not considered low water use. So the landscape architect asked that we go back and re-review the 700 block for a modified designation for low water use trees that they could use as part of this landscape improvements. Similar to most designation changes, we looked at all of Salsa Puedes and noticed that in the 500 to 600 blocks, there's Canary Island pine or Pinus canariensis was the designation there as well. We've seen a pretty significant uptick in mortality with that species, and rather than just look at one block, we decided to look at 3 blocks, so the 500, 600, and 700 block of North Salsa Puedes. We had quite a bit of discussion at the committee meeting. We were looking at essentially available rooting volume, which is tied directly into just how big the tree wells are, how wide the parkways, or how the width of the parkway, I'm sorry. The planting space in the 500 to 600 block is significantly larger than in the 700 block. So once there was discussion, the committee ended up splitting up essentially the designation changes. So for the 500 to 600 block, the Brisbane box and the desert willow was recommended for designation, both low water use plants. The Brisbane box is a pretty medium to large size tree. It's pretty upright, has a lot of vertical growth, kind of similar to a pine tree would have. And then the desert willow satisfies that small tree component that we talk about often, where in areas where we may not be able to use a large tree, we can utilize the smaller tree. And then in the 700 block, to sort of provide some consistency, the desert willow was recommended for use, and then also the Arbutus marina, which is a low water use small tree, just to provide a little bit more diversity within that block. So before you is a recommendation from the Street Tree Advisory Committee to recommend the use of the desert willow and the Marina madrone in the 700 block of North Salsa Puedes, and then also the Brisbane box and the Desert Willow and the 500 to 600 blocks of North Salsapueta Street.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Commissioner Aldana.
As far as the tree wells, you're just going to put the trees where the existing tree wells are, or are you going to make new ones? Or
Chair Fett, Commissioner Aldana, I don't have the details of the specific project, so I'm not sure if there's opportunities to create new tree wells or not, but consistent with other projects within the city and work with the streets department, you know, if and when we are presented with the opportunity to create new tree wells, we always try to do so. I would, you know, it's an aside, but currently we're doing new tree wells on Upper State Street across from McKenzie Park. So if you're in the area, you'll see we're actually cutting brand new 5x5 tree wells in between the existing palm trees with the intent on planting shade trees to add more shade and just overall benefit to that area. So when given the opportunity, we try to do that.
Commissioner Chang.
Just curious about the background behind the request from a local landscape architect. Does it just happen? Do local landscape architects just have many opinions on this sort of thing?
Chair Fett, Commissioner Chang, it's a good question. Sometimes what we find is that many of the designations still exist from 1977 when the original master plan was done. So that's a long time ago. And we'll look it up and you're like, whoa, you know, it just doesn't make sense. And, you know, they're plant people too, and they're like, this makes no sense. And so that can drive it. And then I think increasingly, even though we've had 2 great wet winters, the use of more water-conscious trees is a real critical component. So I think you'll see an uptick of the requests as we encounter these trees that have been designated, you know, a couple decades ago that may have been suitable at the time are just simply no longer suitable.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions, or is anyone prepared to make a motion? Okay, Vice Chair McGill? Now, is there any speakers online?
Yeah.
There's no one online.
Okay.
Okey-dokey. Let's see, let me find it here. I am prepared to make a motion that we approve the changes to the street tree master plan for the 500 to 700 blocks of Salsapueta Street as recommended. Can I just do it that way?
Second.
May we have a vote, please? All righty, all approved. Thank you, Mr. Slack. Next, we have our director's report.
Chair Feck, members of the commission, we have a few things to share with you. Even though it's gray outside, thanks to it being May, that doesn't stop us from doing a variety of activities outside, including very popular trail maintenance days. We had one on Saturday, May 4th, where we partnered with many of our regular trails partners like the Montecito Trails Foundation, Sage Trail Alliance, and the Los Padres Forest Association, as well as the U.S. Forest Service. We had a volunteer trail maintenance day on Jesusita Trail. We had 40 volunteers that worked on 1.5 miles of trail, which is fairly significant if you think about it, doing brushing, essentially, cutting down poison oak. Some of us that walk around have noticed that the poison oak is not suffering from climate change. In fact, I think it's thriving in climate change and water. And then also finding ways to block off unpermitted user-created trails, which can be a significant problem for a variety of reasons, whether it's erosion, safety, and really we want people to stay on designated trails. When unpermitted trails are created, it also can create environmental and habitat impacts as well as just unknown considerations. So we try to eliminate those where we can. We've had some slides on our trails. Those of you that may spend time on trails have noticed that soil moves with rain, and so some of the work did include making the tread more stable and in better condition. With every trail day, we always offer lunch and drinks because people are volunteering. We've been doing this for many, many years. And Steve Biddle is our park supervisor, who is the primary point person in charge in coordinating those events. And there's another one scheduled for Saturday, June 8th. The location is to be determined, but I think we'll know in the near future. We require RSVPs for these events because we want to know how many trail leaders to have. We often have people who've never done this before, so they get a little bit of a training and it's determined what their skill level is and where they can go. If I recall, I think Steve told me about 2/3 of the 40 that showed up were new volunteers, which is great, really, really great. Our partnerships are super important because there's limited, really no funding to maintain our trails, and it's all done through volunteers and agency staff. And then our very popular Concerts in the Park series returns to Chase Palm Park beginning on Thursday, June 27th. We've added a 5th concert, so instead of 4, we're doing 5. We had a very competitive application process. I don't remember the number of applications, but it was many. Your staff report lists which they are. I won't go through all of them. I will just indicate again, we want the 5th concert, and then also we're planning to do an earlier start time. So if you go to the county bowl to hear music, or you go out to hear music, there's often an opening band, and then the featured band, in an effort to sort of broaden our reach to local musicians and provide more opportunity. We'll have a local opening band, and then the actual primetime performers starting at 6 o'clock. So June gloom will hopefully be over by June 27th, and I think traditionally we've had fantastic weather during the concert, so we're really hopeful for that too. And then this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, which means our beach lifeguards start their summer work effort. So if you're down, it's not in your report, but I'm about to talk about seasonal pools, so it's related. If you are down by the beach, you will see lots of people in red. So we still have some lifeguards completing their training, but we had a lot of returning staff, which is really wonderful. So we feel really confident that we have a great staff, which also leads into our ability to staff recreation swim. So it's not a swim lesson, it's not a lap, it's none of that. Members of the public can go to either Ortega Park Pool, Oak Park Pool, which is really the wading pool, and Los Baños del Mar on certain days of the week from June 17th to August 17th. And at Ortega, it'll be Monday through Friday from 12 to 3, Oak Park from 12 to 5, Monday through Sunday, and Los Baños 2:15 to 3:45, Monday through Friday. We're also, believe we'll be able to add some recreation swim hours at Ortega Park Pool on Saturday as a way to hopefully give more community members, children, because it's a small pool, the opportunity to just to play around and do it in a safe environment. Again, we want a nice hot summer because that's what drives people to go to the pool. And hopefully, in addition to the training that we do and the teaching that we do and teaching kids how to swim, it's an opportunity for kids just to play. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ulander-LaBerge.
I have a couple questions. On the beach, as far as the cleanup of debris of carcasses, is that Parks and Rec or is that a different department? There's been a lot of dead seabirds, and I'm not sure if that's a Parks and Rec thing or not.
The question is, do we pick up dead birds on the beach? The work that Parks and Recreation does on the beach relates to grooming and raking. And so if we do encounter anything that goes within that, we do, it gets picked up as part of the grooming or raking process. If people are concerned about dead birds or dead animals on the beach, they should reach out to us, and it either would be us or the waterfront department that investigates what the situation is.
I do daily morning walks down there, and I'm seeing the same dead birds for several days, so that's why I wasn't sure where to direct that. With regards to the pool openings, I do appreciate those extra hours, and I'm commenting not as a commissioner but as a community member that this may also apply to other community members. I've done the Ortega Park swim lessons with my kids. I've done private swim lessons with my kids, but without having access to a pool on a regular basis to test it out, I was having to repeat those lessons over and over and over. Because I didn't have easy access to a pool, and these hours are interesting, but I'm a working parent. Monday through Friday doesn't work for me to take my kids to the pool. And the kiddie pool, the wading pool is lovely, but if I'm trying to get my kids to learn to swim, that's not the place. So whatever is needed to help support of any kind of funding or budget to help with those weekend hours or even extended hours for even the Ortega Park, I ended up taking my kids over to the Hilton to get them to learn to swim because that was the only accessible pool that I had.
Right.
And so its access is really important. And if I'm a person that is of relative means and I'm having to sneak into a pool to get access, then other families who have less means are even in a less position for that.
Yeah, Chair Feck, Commissioner Onender-LaBerge, I think the biggest issue we have with Ortega Park Pool is it does not serve the purpose it should, which is why we want to have a new community pool facility at Ortega Park, so that we could have a year-round pool for young kids who've learned to swim, are learning to swim, and want to be able to practice swimming year-round. We don't have that facility at Los Baños, and we don't have that facility at Ortega Park. So expanding our summer hours where we can is what we're trying to do. We have found that it's not always well used, so we have to balance the cost to operate with how many people use it. We are planning to try to do robust outreach so that people realize this is offered. And we always react based on how we see a place being used. If we see usage going up, it's in our best interest as a department, because we serve the community, to try to meet that interest in any way we can. So if we see that, then we'll figure out a way to respond to the best of our ability. As you can imagine, we hire seasonal employees every year, so a lot of what we do, even during the school year for our recreation after school programs, hinges on our ability to hire staff that we feel confident can do those jobs too. And so we feel pretty good about our staffing for this summer because we've taken great pains to make sure that the wages we have are competitive and attractive, and also the working conditions are such that people want to come back and work for us the next summer, because that is really the strength in our program delivery, is having consistent staff to a point, and then obviously people go on to whatever career they're doing. So I appreciate you bringing that up. We feel it keenly, and really Santa Barbara needs to have a really good community pool facility. And we'd love for that to happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I don't have any more questions, but that was good. Thank you. Let's see, where are we? Okay. I think we can adjourn. That was the last item on our agenda, so we'll adjourn at 4:44 p.m. and we will move on to our site visit.